Hi, I'm Marcel, and welcome to me screaming into the void, mostly about books. I am doing Criminology's Read What You Own challenge, where my husband has picked out 100 books from our shelf, wrapped them up and given them all a number. So it was wrap them up in newspaper, and then I'm reading them one at a time. And this time I read Michael Polanyi, The Tacit Dimension. This is a theory book that talks about silent knowledge from Michael Polanyi, and he has sort of worked a lot within biology, within medicine, and what Michael Polanyi talks about when he talks about the silent dimension, the tacit dimension, is the knowledge that lies within our body. I'm sort of more known to it as bodily knowledge. And what I mean with bodily knowledge is that I've talked a bit about it, that I work as an assistant professor and teach future teachers because I myself is a former teacher. And I've focused a lot on diversity and religious education. But in addition to that, I also focused on young children. So I worked with the topic of diversity geared towards young children. And an aspect of that is that when you're working as a teacher with especially young children, personally and professionally, I also think that this should go for all children, but I know that at least with young children, we talk a lot about teaching, but we also talk a lot about care, because you can't really teach 3, 4, and 5-year-olds without also talking about their care and how you, as a teacher, is also someone who cares for the children, both physically and emotionally. So when I started to read this book, and this book is a theory book, it talks about the science of knowledge. So how do we know something to be true, which isn't something that all scientists agree on? I kept asking myself, is what he's talking about generally just knowledge, sort of bodily knowledge? And when we talk about bodily knowledge from my background, what we mean is that I can go into a classroom and I can know that some kids are upset, and I can know how to pick them up, how to give them comfort, how to engage with children without necessarily being able to put those things into words, because that's something that my body knows, but my mind might not necessarily know. And this is actually much more common than we think. You probably do have a lot of bodily knowledge. If you know how to ride a bike, you sit on the bike and then you just go. It will be impossible for you to actually explain how you're doing it. The same thing with swimming. Very often, if you're teaching someone how to swim, you are doing that through showing them the movements without actually being able to explain with words necessarily. How do you physically move your body? How do you move your finger? And this is the fact that you actually can do this is sort of puts into question the whole mind body as two different things. This question of, do I have a body, or is my body actually a part of who I am? And the aspect that our brain stores knowledge in two different parts. You have the hippocampus, which is in sort of right behind here, the sort of at the center of your brain, the most protected part of your brain, which is where your language is. But right behind your frontal lobe, you actually have a second part that is more a memory of the body aspect of it. So when you are learning how to swim or ride a bike, this is where, just right behind your frontal lobe, is where those aspects are stored. So it's actually stored in different part of your brain than where you're storing your language. So of course you cannot always explain things with words. So the aspect that we, of course, have the knowledge of a body, that your body knows things, and that is an important part of how you act as a professional teacher, is something I was very sort of, isn't that something everyone knows? And that was what made this book so interesting, because he comes at from a very, very different science aspect. So he is coming from this from a biological and a medical aspect of it. And he uses a lot of medical terms to try to explain how knowledge can sort of, you learn things in your body that you still have to learn, but it's not necessarily the same thing as memorizing facts. So it was very weird to read this book, because it felt like, but that's the road. You can just go up that road. You don't need to sort of wade around in the bushes. But at the same time, it was something very nice about reading this book and reading about it from this perspective. Because number one, which is something I talk to my colleagues a lot. I mean, I work with young children. We are female dominated. So the feminist and feminine aspects and understanding of the world is very dominant in how we understand facts. And what I enjoyed about this book is that it says explicitly that bodily knowledge is something you learn. And this is a way that you can understand that learning process, which I find quite refreshing. Having sort of argued with my colleagues who talk more about bodily knowledge as almost instinct, as something, we are women, we are born with a caring part of our body that just shoots out with us in our DNA, rather than thinking about caring as, well, a craft, something you learn how to do and then have to do as a part of your job. So that was kind of a fun array into tacit knowledge, which is a different way of talking about something I already know a lot about, but still learning new things about it because it's a different way into the same subject. So if you sort of are interested in that aspect of human, well, working, how we work and function, it could actually be quite an interesting read. So this is the next book I'm going to read, picking a new one. And I am going to read number 24. So give me a moment and I'll read book 24. Book 24. No Logo by Naomi Klein. I have no idea what this is, so I'll read just off the back. Don't miss this visionary book, perfectly pitched for our suspect overcorporated times. Klein, a young funky heiress to Chomsky, writes valiantly about resistance to the multinational mindset, making this welcome book of conscientious objection one of this year's most resonant, says small I, large D. In the world, if the world really is just one big global village, then the logo is its common language understood by, if not accessible to, everyone. In No Logo, Klein undertakes an arduous journey to the center of the post-national planet. Starting with the brand's birth as a means of bringing soul to mass marketing, she follows in the logo's wake and notes in its increasingly capacity for making the product subservient. Beyond this, she reaches the core argument, the now uneasy struggling between corporate power and anti-corporate activism, via sweatshop labor, submerged identity, and subversion action. Part sociological thesis, part design history, No Logo is entirely engrossing and empathetic, says GQ. And that's going to be the next one. Interesting to read. And if you want to know my thoughts, and feelings about this book, then subscribe. And thank you for listening to me screaming into the void.